Mm. All right, let's get going. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's Reveal My DNA report review. Today, we are in part 2 of the nutrient metabolism and digestion section. So last week, we did the macronutrients in the APOE status, including APO risks, risk mitigation, and Alzheimer's. That has been recorded, so if you want to take a look at that, go to Reveal My DNA. We can get you a recording of last week. We're moving forward through the test. This is the test you'll be getting of any patient or yourself if you ever do one of these tests. And this is our sample report. I'm going to show you how to utilize this in an effective manner. So once we get through our macronutrient requirements, protein, carbohydrates, fats, we look at celiac. Then we're going to move into the micronutrient and mineral requirements. So the nice thing about this section is that although it is good to notate the high and above average needs, it is done in redundancy. So you have a food and grocery list that we'll look at in a minute down below within the test that also gives you the exact same findings, as well as during your review of the entire report, you're going to see specifically different nutrients stand out based on different body systems and genetics, and it'll be coming up yet again. So you can see an example of that in any other section we're in, but the very next section, which we'll probably be doing in 2 weeks from today, the methylation section, you'll see the need for example, B9 or B12. It'll also be here as well. So you're going to get this in triplicate. So we start here. One thing to note about the test, and we're reviewing the micronutrient requirements, we ignore anything that is average. In your head, it's good to equate average with good. I think very often we don't do that. We think of average as mediocre, a C, middling. But indeed, when it comes to your DNA, average is where we want to be. And it basically is telling us we have an average need for a nutrient. And that is based on studies and how our body metabolizes and utilizes that specific nutrients. However, the inverse of that, the opposite, is a high need. And for example, right here, B2 riboflavin, this genotype, this person has a genotype associated with a higher than average need for B2. Now, one reason is given here for the report, says riboflavin requirements are analyzed based on MTHFR gene function and how our body utilizes B2. So this person, based on this entire test of 92 genes and SNPs, needs a high amount of B2 in their diet. So the daily recommended allowance is 1.3 milligrams. We know it's a cofactor vitamin used in numerous reactions associated with protein, fat, and carbohydrate metabolism. Therefore, this person needs to get much more B2 in their diet than the average person. So here are some high sources: liver, lamb, salmon, yogurt, mushrooms. Another way to look at this is go down to the dietary list. We're going to do that right now. I'm going to scoot through all the sections. And we're going to just to see what it looks like. Right here, their personalized DNA grocery list. And the first thing that comes up is B2, right? So it's important. Get a mark there. Well, anyway, and you can see again, high sources: lamb, salmon, yogurt, liver, oyster mushrooms. These are not the only sources. These just happen to be very rich in B2. And if people are consuming these types of foods or making a choice at a restaurant or at home, oh, you're going the chicken tonight or the lamb, maybe get the lamb or the salmon. Consume yogurt, liver, oyster mushrooms, and liver in any capacity. So this could be liverwurst and pate and any way you want to get it in you. So back up to here, see the BT, see a lot of the same information. And so, you notate here that it's high. You don't have to do much with it other than, give it a cursory glance and then know that food recommendations will be down below. Next is B3 niacin. This person also has a high need for niacin. It gives you the target amount, 16 milligrams. You'd say where it is associated, the genes that are associated with cardiovascular, for the need of niacin tend to be associated with cardiovascular support, skin, and methylation. So this person is associated with a higher sensitivity to low niacin, meaning that if they have a low niacin intake daily, regularly, they're going to be sensitive to that. And it's going to impact cardiovascular, skin, and methylation. So again, it gives you a quick glance view of some foods that are very rich in niacin. Tuna, salmon, turkey, chicken, steak, mushrooms, brown rice. Next is B6, pyridoxine. It again gives you the target amount. It can manifest in deficiency in anorexia, irritability, anxiety, depression, muscle pain, PMS, low progesterone, nausea, seizures, migraines, dermatitis, age-related macular degeneration, and lethargy. So this person has a higher than average need right here for B6. You can read a little bit more about it here. And then again, some of the foods that are going to be rich in niacin. And at this point, I'm going to pause because as you're making recommendations with these folks and just finding out targeted, like this individual here, she needs this B6, B2, B9, folate. One thing you're going to know is that this can help you develop a nutritional program for them as well. Because you might talk to them about these foods or have them look at that food list and say, yeah, I don't really eat a lot of that stuff. I eat lettuce and bananas and then pizza, pasta, meatballs, I don't know, whatever somebody's eating, hamburgers. But they're not getting a lot of this, kombucha, wild salmon, avocado, sweet potatoes, just not part of their diet. Well, this will help you design your nutritional program for them and protocol. And it allows you to, now it's not telling us they're deficient in B6. They might be eating all these foods. They might be supplementing in B6. That's great. But it's telling us they do have a high need. So as a practitioner, you want to be aware of that and you want to have a strategy to support them. Indeed, if they are not interested in the foods that contain these nutrients. So you can build out a nutrition protocol, a supplement protocol for them based on this test. And this is really important. It's a really nice way to shortcut to them providing nutrition for their best life and preventing illness and disease moving forward. Next, B9. This person also has a high need for B9. And you're going to see these tests are going to be all over the place. Some will be high here and low here and low here and high here and average and everywhere in between because we're all unique and different. So it really does help. It's not one size fits all, but it does flow all in the same sequence. So this person has a very high need for folate. It's a very influential nutrigenomic micronutrient. It has powerful influence on your genes, specifically genes related to pregnancy, homocysteine levels, and preventing cancer. So you can see why it's very important for kind of longevity approach to the test as well. But obviously daily, right? Homocysteine levels and methylating, this is something we do all the time and need to maintain normal. So you can see where it's depleted. And then you see foods that are in a quick snapshot, loaded and fully. And that's important to share. Next comes B12. So in this case, this person did not have a high need for B12. And again, you can see it's related to homocysteine, brain health, pregnancy, and energy. The gene itself is FUT2. And if this person had an above average or a high need, there would be the dietary recommendations right here, and as well as down below. Oops, sorry, fast there. After B12, we get into some minerals. Boron's the first mineral that show up in the chart. Now, this person does not have a need, but you can see again what is your target for boron, where it's connected in health, bone health, hormone health, healthy SAMe levels for brain health, and then testosterone, osteoporosis, osteopenia. And this person has average need. And again, if there were a medium or an above average or a high need, you'd have a whole list right here of potential needs. And I see someone just threw that in the chat. Yes, you may ask about B12 right here. So B12, like all of these, would come up and tell you where it's depleted. For example, antacids, antibiotics, proton pump inhibitors. So anything that's preventing hydrochloric acid production, breakdown of protein, metformin, which in the glucophage, any of these blood sugar medications, anticonvulsants, all contraceptives, certain psychiatric medications. And then people with digestive disorders are very high risk, or proton pump inhibitors are risk for B12 deficiency. B12, again, we have the food. So the third bullet point down, are these the types of people that have the highest or greatest need? They're about older adults, vegans, digestive disorders, and those who take metformin, PPIs, or PPIs have the highest risk for B12 deficiency. Absolutely. And then if you combine it with having a high genetic need, it's imperative to be eating foods here that are rich in B12. Now, if you're a vegan, you're not going to choose any of these in their list yet. And then, so you're going to have to supplement. Now, the other option, I'm just going to go down to the food list because I don't have it memorized, every food that contains B12. And certainly, Googling foods rich in B12 is a great way to do it. But our test, so this person didn't need B12, so it's not on this list. I mean, it's a lot of the same things that are in, so let's get back to where we were. Yeah, so I think, so a lot of things that are, tend to be rich in B12 are things like liver, clams, shellfish, wild salmon, ground beef, yogurt, eggs, and cheddar cheese. But none of those can be a benefit to a vegan. So in this case, you'd have to Google for the patient where, richest sources of vegetarian sources of B12, which I can do right now. And what that Google AI will tell us is fortified cereals. So that's synthetic, that's vitamins, nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast, a powerhouse of B12. Algae and mushrooms, nori, spirulina, edible seaweed, shiitake, white button mushrooms, brewer's yeast. So basically what it's saying is supplement, but finding some of those few foods are good to get in your um, beans, legumes, black beans, chickpeas, edamame, green peas, kidney beans, lentils, pinto beans. That's a number one for your vegetarians and vegans. Leafy greens, leafy greens, leafy greens and B12. Let's see what we got. We've got yeah, not really rich in B12, to be honest. So, um, you know, when it comes to vegans, it might come down to supplementing. Good question, though. It's a tough one, but it's good to know. And if you have that high need and then those other risk factors, gonna have to find out a way to get B12 into your body. Seaweed could be an option. I'd probably supplement at this point. But you know, that's up between you and the patient. So boron, we were there. Next is choline betaine. Choline betaine. Betaine doesn't have an RDA amount, but we know it plays a big role in genetic influence and supporting our genes, specifically if you have a genotype that's associated with a higher average need for choline and or betaine. You can see where choline is depleted, and indeed exercise as well. You know, you just use it up. You know, and increasing phosphatidylcholine is found to improve exercise capacity during high intensity cycling, running, as well as improving and as well as reducing muscle soreness. So let me tell you something. When you see this somewhere in the test where it says like cycling and running, you go, well, geez, that's very specific. Are you just telling me that cycling and running are the high intensity exercises that deplete phosphatidylcholine and choline use? No, I'm not saying that. What they're saying is they had clinical trials, actually studies that are drawn into the report that talked about people cycling and running and measuring their choline levels, phosphatidylcholine levels, and they were depleted. So any high intensity exercise will mimic that. Basically, if it was in a study and utilized in this report, they're going to stay true to the study. And the study itself said cycling. The other study said running. So they have to maintain that. But any high intensity exercise is going to reduce depleting choline, and then by increasing choline, you're going to improve your exercise capacity and reduce your soreness. And you know, on top of this person having a high need, it's going to be very important they get into their body. So here's a couple choices. Here again, the foods for choline, foods for betaine, and ultimately supplementing might be the way to go, because you know, it's just such a need for people. And if a person's very active and they don't eat a lot of these different foods, supplementing might be the very best way to keep them on the path to optimum health with utilizing this DNA report. And thank you for the question in the chat box. The chat box is open. So if you see the bottom of your screen, you can click on the little chat icon and you can type in any questions you may have. And we will answer them as we go along, as we've been doing here so far. Next is vitamin E. I like this report because it's got a lot of needs here. So it allows us to just kind of get a sense of what some of these info boxes are going to tell us and what we are going to inform our patients about. So here you're going to see where vitamin A supports the body. We don't have to go through all of that. But this is what's important here. The genotype is associated with 69% lower conversion rate of beta-carotene to vitamin A, making it important for this person to include more animal-based vitamin A to hit the daily target, or supplement with vitamin A, or eat richer, more vegetarian sources to get the body to convert to retinol, get that functional vitamin A out of the foods they're eating. Again, here are the great sources: liver, eggs, cod liver oil, salmon oil, herring, and sockeye salmon. Now, again, these are some foods that people are not going to eat, but these are not the only foods. So if we go down to the food chart again, and this is all like at a glance, right? When you're doing this to your patient, you can see those same foods chosen. But we also know there's vitamin A in colorful vegetables, carrots, peppers, things of that nature. They're just going to have to eat more of them, or if they're in a clinical situation when they're dealing with gut lining issues, oral health issues, eye health problems, iron metabolism issues, mitochondrial health, skin health, lung function, or immunity issues, this is where you might say, all right, whatever's happening in their diet, it's not reaching it. If they're not going to make a change in the diet, or they're not going to increase their foods rich in vitamin A, that's now, as a clinician, this is where I need to supplement. And it helps you build out your supplementation protocol for them. And it doesn't have to be, a big dosage, maybe just a little bit every day for a while. Make sure they're hitting that minimum need. Next is vitamin D, very important nutrient. So wide role in immune function, cardiovascular health, and cancer prevention, right? Super important vitamin. This person has a lower than average circulating level of D. Where is it depleted? Obesity by default, unfortunately. Pesticides, high fructose intake, especially high fructose corn syrup. A lot of Americans, first of all, have issues with weight. Many, many more are exposed to pesticides, both in our food or just in our environment. Any golfers out there, or friends of golfers, or family members of golfers, they get exposed to pesticides, extremely high, or not eating non-organic foods, not clean water, sugar intake, anticonvulsants, barbiturates, benzodiazepines. A lot of people are on benzodiazepines every day. This is going to deplete your D levels. Calcium channel blockers, corticosteroids, antidepressants, and bronchodilators. So, a lot of impact then, from pharmaceuticals. So where is it rich? Again, you see some great sources, and again, this person has a high need, and if they're presenting with any of these issues here, immune, bone, cardiovascular, cancer issues, we're probably going to have to supplement. And that's okay. That's what you're here for. You're here to guide them, to give them a roadmap, to give them, tools to use to make them better. And this test will point you in the direction where they need to go. All right, need for D is high, presenting with bone health issues. Don't eat any of these foods. Now I know what to supplement with. You're given all the clues of how to start a program with anybody. And that's another thing. You have a new patient coming in, you don't really know where to start nutritionally with them. You can have this take this test and then just start right in with all the high needs here. You have them written down, then you say, look at your food list. Do you eat any of these foods? Yes, no, no. Okay, how are you feeling? They probably came in because they weren't feeling great. And you tie them all together and you can see where we can start with nutrition. This person's good on vitamin C, that's great. All falls the same way. You can see where C is used: cancer, heart disease, cold, flu, cataracts, hypertension, depression. It's a good vitamin. And vitamin E. Okay. Again, this person has a high need. So important for their antioxidant production pathways. So we're thinking about glutathione, we're thinking about methylation, stuff of that nature, skin health, fertility, brain health, cardiovascular health. Now, they have a higher sensitivity to low E and therefore need to supplement sunflower seeds, and almonds, and avocado, spinach. This one's much more vegan friendly, isn't it? And vegetarian friendly. Butternut squash soup, olive oil. So all great sources, things people should be eating regularly anyway, but We all know people who won't eat these foods, therefore we need to supplement. And we'll move on. K2. So again, you're going to find out, do they have a genetic need for K2? Where K2 supporting this? Sex hormones, brain, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory activity, supports bone health. What else? So, K2 is getting out of conversion to that MK4, MK7, and arterial calcification, bone density, anti-cancer properties, improving salivary buffering, and increasing cardiac output. This person has an average need. Had they had a above average or high need, we'd have a whole list of the foods we want them to be consuming, or again, supplementing. Magnesium, another mineral. We've been vitamin heavy so far. Now we're looking at some more minerals. You see all the uses of magnesium, 300 biochemical reactions, and deficiency has a widespread effect on every aspect of health. Low magnesium include calf cramping at night, headaches, arrhythmia, calcification, muscle fatigue. This person has a higher than average need because they're above average. And so we can see they're depleted. Now, how many of your patients either smoke or consume sugar or have chronic stress or have a high alcohol intake or drink coffee or tea or consume fluoridated water or phosphoric acid in soda or consume non-fermented grain, fine grains, engage in intense exercise, have high protein diets, have high calcium supplementation, or maybe they have high arsenic levels or antacids or proton pump inhibitors, Prilosec, or ACE inhibitors for their heart, or birth control pill, or hormone replacement therapy, or estradiol, or Premarin, or antibiotics, or antivirals, or immunosuppressants, or methylphenidate, or tamoxifen, or maybe they have corticosteroids like cortisone. So you can see it's getting impacted a lot in this country. So ideally, let's eat it. Pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, mineral water, real mineral water, spinach, salmon, peanut butter, peanuts. So these are starts. And then also, if this person is high and presenting with any of these problems, or they're living with a lot of this stuff, might have to do some supplementation. Manganese. Now, manganese is not needed here, but same concept as magnesium in as much as that, you need it. Here are the different systems: heart, blood sugar, fertility, bone health, brain, and would have the foods rich in if we're needed. Same with lithium. You're gonna keep going through. So again, I want you to note that when something comes in average, you don't have to spend any time here with the patient. You don't have to do any health detective stuff. You just move on to the next thing that's above average or high. And in this case, it's potassium. The recommended daily allowance for potassium is 3,400 milligrams for men and 2,600 for females. It's an electrolyte, helps maintain fluid levels inside the cells. It's good for muscle contractions, exercise, of course, blood pressure. And historically, the hunter-gatherers took in about 11,000 milligrams potassium a day from fruits, vegetables, leaves, flowers, roots, and other plant sources, and under 700 milligrams of sodium. So they had a very high potassium-sodium ratio. And that really gets inverted in this country very often on a daily basis with a high level of sodium intake related to relative to potassium. However, you can see some wonderful foods rich in potassium, and supplementing is not bad. But think about this. I mean, 11,000, and one banana has 422. So you're eating like 22 bananas. or having 20 cups of tomato sauce or 20 cups of spinach. So, it's you got to eat a lot of healthy food in general, and then you got to maintain that for good potassium levels or supplement. Iron, and again, any questions, just throw it in the chat box. This person has an above average need for iron, kind of the same story, but you can see that iron has a higher absorption rate than non-heme iron. Excuse me, heme iron has a higher absorption rate. So animal-based foods contain the heme iron. Plant foods contain non-heme. So you have to eat more plant-based iron than animal-based to get the same absorption rate. And again, you can see kind of some of the top sources here. We're looking for 18 milligrams. So if you're a chocolate lover, that's 9 ounces. Not too bad. So you don't want all that sugar. But you can just see, different ways to get iron in you. Selenium. Selenium is very, very important. There is a strong correlation with selenium and DNA and immunity and glutathione. Now, this person doesn't have the need, but regardless of that, we all need selenium because it's involved in our glutathione, our master antioxidant and immune support, detoxification, immunity, thyroid health, skin health, and cancer prevention. If you find someone is above average or high, there really are great food sources of selenium. And if you need to supplement, in general, I think, one a day, typically of a selenium supplement will get you there. Next is zinc. Another mineral, plays a role with genes connected to immunity, cancer, detoxification, skin health, eye health, and more. This genotype is associated with lower serum zinc levels. Here you can see where it's depleted and where the foods are that it's richest. So again, you're going to be making that decision. Are we eating these foods, or are we going to supplement, or are we going to do both? Next is copper. So copper involved in the regulation of gene expression, brain development, neurotransmitters, cardiovascular health, and immune system functioning. And when this section ends in 1 second, I'm going to show you where these come back up again in the test. As an example, again, good sources of copper. And again, if they're not eating these foods regularly and they have an above average or high need, you can supplement with them. And next is prebiotic fiber. Not a mineral, not a nutrient, but something that's given in the test, and we want to mark quickly, where the fiber is. All right, so we're going to keep it moving. Now we're getting into plant-based requirements. We just did the vitamins and minerals. And now we're going to talk about plant-derived compounds. First one that comes up is phytoestrogens. This person does not have an increased or a high need, so we keep moving. Next would be lutein and zeaxanthin. There's not an established daily amount, but we do know that people who eat foods rich in lutein and zeaxanthin have good health outcomes, especially with eyes. And for reducing the risk of eye disorders, the estimated target is 6 milligrams more daily. And you can get that with your spinach, your kale, your egg yolks. But egg yolks, you need like quite a bit to get up to 6 milligrams. Orange peppers and other colored peppers and rich, colorful, bright colored fruits and vegetables. So you got to eat. There's a big need in increasing high. So there's a small amount in these foods. You got to eat a lot, or eat it regularly, or supplement. Next are your polyphenols. Sorry. Here. Okay. So consumption of diet rich in plant polyphenols offer protection against the development of cancers, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, and neurodegenerative diseases. This genotype is associated with a slower metabolism of certain polyphenols, which means they get a higher benefit. They don't metabolize them. They don't get out of the body, but a lot of people are increased in high. And then they need green tea, coffee, berries, and chocolate as a source of polyphenols in their body to maintain these protective factors. Cinnamon. So there's a gene that tells us if cinnamon is important. And it can help with blood sugar handling and satiety, so fullness. So if it comes up increased or high, you're going to look at getting cinnamon into the diet of the patient or supplementing. Next is cruciferous vegetables. This very often comes up increased or high, known for their anti-cancer activity. Certain genotypes require higher levels of this anti-cancer activity. And certainly you see, again, good foods. And look at this, 1 to 2 cups of cruciferous vegetables per day. So this is not, I had broccoli Monday and Brussels sprouts on Friday. This is eating cruciferous vegetables daily. It's not easy to do. You've got to talk to the patient about that, how to cook foods, you know, the cruciferous. I mean, I think one easy way to do it is think common food like coleslaw. You know, a lot of people like coleslaw. They see it on the menu, it might come with a sandwich or something, or they fish and chips or something. They don't necessarily think to order it, but a side of coleslaw will get that cabbage in them, get that cruciferous vegetable, and give them the genetic support. And of course, it is something that we can absolutely supplement and probably will need to if they're at increased or high need. Lycopene, same story. Here are some foods rich in lycopene. Here are the unique benefits for heart, breast, prostate, and skin health. And this person does not have a need. Apigenin, it's a flavonoid from plants that possesses anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer properties. Certain genotypes, of course, require higher levels for breast health. And the genotype is associated with an average need for apigenin for breast health. Yes, sauerkraut is another great choice for getting that cabbage into you. Sauteed cabbage. Let's see, it's March. Maybe we can get people getting to their corned beef and cabbage time of year with more emphasis on the cabbage. But yeah, for sure. Next is resveratrol. Resveratrol, the plant chemical produced in response to stress from the elements, has been found to protect against heart disease and potentially extending life. And this person has an increased need. You'll see where resveratrol, it definitely helps heart, increases the PO1 and ACE2 levels, which are both linked to specific genes, and how we can positively impact those genes by eating foods rich in grapes, eating rich in resveratrol, such as grapes, peanuts, pistachios, blueberries, cranberries, and dark chocolate as the highest sources, but there are other foods and drinks that do contain resveratrol, and again can be supplemented. And then toward the end of this section, it also, like that bit on fiber, there's also a gene for lactose tolerance. This person is lactose tolerant, but if they were intolerant, it would come here. So and then your caffeine metabolism. So why this is more informational. This lets you know if you're a fast metabolizer of caffeine or a slow or intermediate. In this case, this person's fast. They feel those effects strongly, but then it wears off quickly. And a slow metabolizer kind of has that opposite. They don't feel caffeine as much, but it takes the longer for the effects of caffeine to wear down. And this is just how unique we all are, right? Some people drink coffee in the afternoon, they're fine, they go to sleep, no problem. Some people drink coffee after dinner, they go out to eat and anyone like tea or coffee? Oh yes, I'd love some coffee. And then drive home and hour and a half later, they go right to bed, no problem. Other people have that cup of coffee, they be up all night. So we're all different based on our genes, and we affect the CYP1A2 gene by drinking caffeine. And that is the end of the nutrition, micronutrient, plant-based nutrition section of the Reveal My DNA test. Thank you for joining us.